If you participate in photography or videography, you fall into two categories. There are the ones who hate sunrises and those who love sunrises, and I fall into the category of loving sunrises, and here's why. You see, the excitement I feel in the early hours of the morning, not knowing if, the weather's gonna hold up and you're gonna get an epic sunrise, is always really exciting. But luckily on this shoot, I got a really unique and interesting sunrise. It wasn't picture perfect, but it was enough for me to work with where I could get some really cool photos. And that's what we're gonna be going over today, is a LEGO photographer's process, where I basically did 3 shoots in one day. I also put up on my Instagram a Q&A tab for you to ask me questions you had about the specific shoot, and I'm gonna answer a few of those questions as well, while reviewing some Insta 360 gear. So grab a snack, grab a drink, and yeah, let's go over today's shoot. Just off the bat, this video is not sponsored by Insta360. They essentially just sent me out a bunch of cameras to try, do LEGO photography with them, capture my process with these cameras. I'm not getting paid to say anything here. This is my honest review, and it's really cool kicking the year off with a collaboration with Insta360, because I've always looked up to their gear and I've always wanted to try it, and best believe we're going to be getting some really cool POV footage with this camera, but that's later down the track. But for now, let's look at today's shoot. So the inspiration for this shoot was very easy. I grew up watching the Ninjago shows. I remember specifically going to the warehouse, which is basically like an everything store here in New Zealand, and me and my brother picking up Ninjago sets. And I remember getting home and like building them together and then just having like duels between the two, and it was really, really cool. When I saw that they were releasing a 15th anniversary set, I knew exactly what I was going to be doing with this set. The concept was easy. I knew I was going to take this to a really cool location and shoot it at sunrise, because I mean, you see in the show that it's kind of got this like golden look to it, and I immediately thought of a sunrise. So yeah, it's a no-brainer. Now you can just see the difference. This photo here was taken at 6:26 p.m. and the sun rose at 6:20. Now you skip to 6:58. The difference of almost 20 minutes is basically night and day. And right off the bat, I was able to get the photos that I wanted of the temple. That's what allowed me to get a little bit experimental with the photos and get these nice silhouette shots of Master Wu on top of the temple. Now let's go over some of your burning questions you had about this specific shoot. So the first question, tips for finding locations that aren't busy. Where I live, there are usually dog walkers and hikers. It's actually funny that you mentioned that, because when I was doing this shoot, I had a guy walking his dog, and the guy came up to me and we started having a conversation. He was just asking what I was doing, and the dog came up to me and it had a stick in its mouth and basically saying like, throw it for me. So I was throwing the stick for him, and every time he came back, he would have less and less of the stick as he was, chomping away at it. So I'm not sure how to answer that question, because I was doing this shoot where there were people walking past and stuff like that. I guess it's just not caring what other people think. I know it's easier said than done. I definitely was like a bit self-conscious having people walk past while me, the 22-year-old, was taking photos, but I knew I was getting good photos, so it wasn't the end of the world. And you might get interactions like I had. Like, the guy was really interested in what I was doing, and he even said like, wow, you're able to make these figures look lifelike, and that was a really cool compliment that he gave me. I guess the best advice I could give you is shooting at times that maybe they're not as many people. If you're not working or going to school on specific days, choosing a weekday is really, really good, especially if it's not the holidays, because you definitely have less people walking through these areas. The number one tip is to make sure that you're out of the way of people, because the last thing you want to do is bother somebody. How do you make it look so big, like a real house? Now, the way I do this is simply just shooting at an angle that seems natural. If you're shooting a house, you're gonna be somewhat a little bit below that house, because the house is obviously bigger than you. So the key is eye level. Eye level is the most important thing to remember when shooting LEGO regardless, because you wanna act like you're in their world, shooting from their perspective and their angles, and that is the best way to make them look lifelike. And also punching in or zooming in, if you can do that with your camera, adds a layer of compression, so it makes it look a lot bigger than it actually is. How do you keep your figures in focus? Now this is really difficult because it depends on what kind of camera you use. Now my new Canon R8 is really good at focusing on the figures. Like, I set it up so it tracks everything and then it basically locks onto the LEGO figure right away. But when I was using my old Canon 700D, which was awful at focusing on, small figures like that, I would have to digitally zoom on the actual screen and pull focus myself. And that was another way of doing it. It really really depends on what kind of camera you have, but the best advice I could give you is if your camera isn't the best at focusing on small figures, either use manual focus and try and eyeball it, or make sure that you're far away enough that your lens can focus, because there's only so far that your lens can focus. This is not a macro lens. If I put my hand up here, it can't focus. It is far too close to the actual lens. But then when I start to pull it back, you can see that now it can focus. But if I go any further, then it can't. It's impossible. But here, it can. So you have to make sure that your figure is far away enough that your lens can actually focus, and that just comes from trial and error. Next question is, how do you get natural items, grass blades and wildflowers not to reveal the minifigure scale? Now, this one is really tricky, but I have a great example for this. When I was shooting the Shire set, I went to a location that had really, really long grass, and you can just see from these photos that it is not in scale whatsoever. So I had to eventually move to another spot where the grass was a lot lower and somewhere where it looked in scale. For this specific set, it's almost like it wasn't even grass, it was almost like a bed of plants and weeds that had been growing together, and it was really, really low, which was important for this set because I don't want to overpower it with, you know, plants and stuff like that. Like you can see in the background that there is some like larger, you know, grass blades and ferns and stuff like that. But here was really perfect because it's almost like these little plants were in scale with the temple, which, you know, made for a perfect scene. So it's almost just scouting out the location and figuring out different spots that could work in scale with your Lego sets or your Lego minifigures. And also, if you really have to, you can pull some of the grass out. I had to pull out a few weeds like from this area because it was just overpowering, and also, you know, weeds aren't the best thing in the world. Just looking around your location and seeing what you can do. If you have any more questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them in the comments, but for now, let's continue with the rest of today's shoot. Now, as the sun rose up, I got some really nice images. This is probably one of my favorite images. This was using the 85mm, and just Sensei Wu kind of like walking towards the temple, and that silhouette looks so clean, and that nice golden hour just looks so awesome. Now, later on in the year, I'm definitely going to be doing a more in-depth look at how I edit my photos, as you know, a lot of you have been asking that. I think the main thing for these images was I was trying to expose the sky correctly, as you know, the sky is the brightest thing in these images, knowing that I could pull back the shadows, you know, in Lightroom. So you can kind of see here that I've exposed the sky correctly and pulled the shadows back to, you know, reveal Sensei Wu, and it works kind of well. You can kind of see all my exposure settings and contrast. And then as far as colors go, you know, changing the reds a little bit, upping the oranges and the greens, also adding a little bit more orange in the temperature, because if it looks cold like this, that looks a yikes. But then you pull it up and it looks really nice because it's, you know, obviously golden hour. And then after the sun rose up, I knew I didn't have too much time to, you know, get the photos that I wanted with this light as the clouds were coming in. And that's where planning is very important. I had a Google Doc of all the images that I wanted to get. I basically just run through that list and, you know, tick them off as I go. So I'm not like standing there thinking, oh, what can I do here to get some cool photos? I already know what I want to do, so I can make the most of that light. Because literally, just as I wrapped this shoot up, the clouds came in and that sunlight was gone. So I wouldn't have been able to get these photos if I didn't have a plan. Super stoked with these images. It was very, very fun to use the Insta360 Ace Pro to kind of capture some video of me, you know, taking photos with this thing. Now, as far as the direction goes for what I was trying to shoot with this, you know, little action camera, it is mostly capturing the behind the scenes footage, as a lot of you, you know, ask for that sort of footage, as you're very curious to how I get these sort of photos. And that part, it was just, you know, trying to get some cool compositions with the camera and things like that. It's actually really cool. You can buy a printer that comes along with it, and you can, you know, print instant, you know, photographs that you take, which is insane for an action camera. So, you know, I did some stuff with that. That was really, really fun. It's just really buzzy that, you know, action cameras can now equip a printer and print images on the go. Like that's insane. And then of course it can slide back in. Kind of acts like an actual camera, like with the grip and everything like that. Really, really cool. So yeah, that was really interesting to take photos with. Super stoked with these images. Next, it was ready shoot number 2 of the day. So shoot number 2 was to kind of look into how the Insta360 Ace 2 Pro worked with the printer. And I knew exactly where I wanted to go. Wanted to go out to Cornwall Park and shoot this Lego truck, because that's a really nice contrast between the reds, the greens, and the slight browns. So this shoot was super easy. I was able to get some really nice shots. Again, shooting from that low angle works extremely well. Think of yourself as the Lego figure and how you would observe, you know, this car if you were the real thing. My favorite image is definitely this one. I was able to get super low and also shoot this really nice green tree in the background, and the nice leaves kind of like create this really nice foreground, and also getting the prints as well. I think I've got one of them here actually. Really nice print of that truck. This camera is not meant as a macro camera or a macro lens, so it was kind of hard to get focus, but I'm going to be shooting on a macro lens built for this camera very shortly, so be on the lookout for that. So yeah, the goal with this video was just kind of show viewers that, you know, you can take some pretty cool photos with this action camera with Lego. It's also really funny that when I was taking this photo, there was this kid walking past and he said, and so I used that for the final video, and yeah, I thought it was, you know, just something, you know, different, and also, you know, having a human interaction in there made this video really cool. So now you may be asking yourself whether or not this camera would be good as a amateur camera. I could not recommend this camera enough, because the video and also the photos that you can get from this camera are insane. And also with the printing feature and all the different mods that you can get for it, I highly recommend it as a photographer and videographer camera if you're just starting out. They've got a manual and they've got an auto feature, so you can kind of play around with that and just basically learn the basics to photography. Now, if you do Lego photography, you'll definitely need the macro feature, which I'll be testing very soon, so I'll give you a good review on that. Right, now moving on to shoot number 3 of the day, and this was going to Auckland City. This is a nice little action camera that, you know, detaches from the body. You can clip it to anything magnetic and be able to view it on the screen here, which I'll do a little test right now. That's you right there, which is really cool. So if you have this set up on your, you know, chest and you're filming something, you can look at the screen and figure out, okay, I want to adjust it a little bit higher, a little bit lower, and it's perfect. And it comes with a nice little lanyard that, you know, magnetizes to it so that you can, you know, you don't need a chest mount or a strap or anything like that. You just need your neck. So I was basically just trying to get some POV footage of me getting Lego shots. Starting off nice and easy with Spider-Man, just using, you know, any colors that contrast with the blue and red. So this nice black pipe and the gray wall worked extremely well. And of course you got to add a little bit of story in there, so that's why I gave him a red coffee mug. And then the second shot was a lot of fun. I was able to get him on this like small little beam and also have like that brick wall behind him was really cool. And him hanging upside down and drinking the coffee, I think. Again, the best way to make them look lifelike is to punch in and zoom, but the main thing is making sure that the background is still recognizable. You can do that by opening the aperture up or making sure that you're shooting from a distance. Next, I moved on to some skateboard shots, and again, this was a lot of fun. And this was a cool shot, I think, because like, I don't know what you would call this, maybe a gate or something, and it had like a point, and I was just like, looks like it's pointing towards a skateboarder, then we put him here. It's just a creative shot, and this was a lot of fun. Playing around with those reflections, I saw a lot of water and create a little bit of a story. The story being that he's skateboarding and then eats shit. And the water kind of, for some reason, looks like he's in action, like hitting the ground. I don't know why it looks like that. Maybe it's because of the water, but these were some cool photos. And you can see in the background, there's just like tall skyscrapers and buildings and stuff, which kind of adds to the image, which I really, really like. Now, this is a really cool shot. This is the Spider-Man 2099, I believe, right next to a staircase. And I was just like, I reckon I could do some really cool shots with this. And I put him on the end of this ledge. And yeah, while I was shooting these videos, I was just trying my best to get many perspectives as I could. I had, you know, it clipped to my hat at one point, which gave a really weird position of my mustache and my beard. But then I tilted it and it gave me a nice, you know, top-down POV shot of me shooting footage, which was kind of cool. And another great thing is you can magnetize it to things. So I was able to get these really unique angles where I could put it on basically a metal grate and have myself walking past. And I didn't need no tripod or anything, which is just... it's awesome. And then last but not least, I don't know how I came up with this, but I was just wanting to have a little bit of fun. You know, having Joker, Batman and Superman together on a bus bench and Batman just not having any of it. It's just like, you know, a fun story people can look at. So yeah, I was able to get some nice POV footage of all of these things, and all those videos are going to be up on my Instagram. But yeah, today's video, it was just kind of showing a little bit of the process of my, you know, day in the life of a Lego photographer, I guess. You know, 3 different shoots, you know, 3 different locations. It was a lot of fun shooting on these cameras right here. I'm going to be doing another video, especially with the Ace 2 Pro and another camera from Insta360. I'm not going to say what it is just yet, but that video has very good potential. That's all I'm going to say. I'll give you a hint. We're going to be shooting in the forest, so make of that as you will. If you have any more questions about this shoot, please let me know in the comments, and I'll be replying to all the comments and answering all of your questions. But I hope this video was helpful, and again, a huge thank you to Insta360 for sending these cameras out. Had a lot of fun shooting with them. Seriously, they were yeah, shooting new POV footage again is so refreshing. Yeah, I'm going to be using this camera for the rest of the year, 100%. Going to be shooting so much POV footage, providing so much content for you guys, and showing the process of, you know, Lego photography. So like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Follow my Instagram, as you'll see all these images in the flesh. I will see you in the next video. Great start to 2026. Cannot wait to see where this year goes. We've got so much planned. We've got so many cool videos. I want to tell you all of them, but you know, I gotta surprise you. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.